There were 4 little rabbits named Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their kind mother in a cozy sandbank underneath the roots of a tall fir tree. One bright morning, Mrs. Rabbit called her children together. "My dears," she said, "you may go and play in the fields or down the lane, but do not go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there and ended up in one of Mrs. McGregor's pies." With a warning glance, she added, "Now, run along and don't get into any mischief. I'm going out." Mrs. Rabbit picked up her basket and umbrella and headed to the bakery, where she bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail were good little bunnies. They went down the lane to pick sweet blackberries. But Peter, being the naughtiest of them all, ran straight to Mr. McGregor's garden. He squeezed under the gate and found himself surrounded by rows of delicious vegetables. First, Peter nibbled on some fresh lettuce, then moved on to the French beans, and finally, the radishes. Feeling quite full, but slightly unwell, he decided to look for parsley to settle his tummy. That's when trouble struck. As Peter turned a corner near a cucumber frame, he came face to face with Mr. McGregor, who was busy planting cabbages. "Stop, thief," Mr. McGregor shouted, jumping to his feet and grabbing a rake. Terrified, Peter darted through the garden, forgetting the way back to the gate. In his frantic escape, he lost one shoe among the cabbages and the other in the potato patch. Now barefoot, Peter ran faster on all 4s. Just as he thought he might escape, he got caught in a gooseberry net by the buttons on his new blue jacket. Peter struggled and shed big tears, thinking all hope was lost. Fortunately, some friendly sparrows flew down to encourage him. With their help, Peter wriggled free, leaving his jacket behind. Mr. McGregor spotted the jacket and came running with a sieve. But Peter was too quick. He dashed into a tool shed and jumped into a watering can, only to find it filled with water. Hearing Mr. McGregor approach, Peter scrambled out of the can and sneezed, giving away his hiding spot. Mr. McGregor lunged for him, but Peter leaped out of a small window, knocking over 3 flower pots on his way. Exhausted and soaking wet, Peter rested for a moment before wandering aimlessly through the garden, unsure of the way home. He came upon a locked door in the wall, but it was too small for him to squeeze under. Nearby, an old mouse was carrying peas and beans. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but the mouse, with her mouth full, could only shake her head. As Peter wandered on, he spotted a white cat staring intently at some goldfish in a pond. Remembering stories about cats from his cousin Benjamin Bunny, Peter quietly backed away. He heard the sound of a hoe scraping nearby and hid under a bush. Peeking out, he saw Mr. McGregor tending to his onions. Beyond him was the gate. Summoning his courage, Peter dashed past Mr. McGregor, who spotted him at the last moment. But Peter didn't stop. He slipped under the gate and escaped into the safety of the woods. Back in the garden, Mr. McGregor hung Peter's little jacket and shoes on a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Meanwhile, Peter didn't stop running until he reached the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down on the soft sandy floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother, busy cooking supper, noticed his missing clothes. "Oh, Peter," she sighed. "That's the second jacket and pair of shoes you've lost in a fortnight." Peter wasn't feeling very well after his adventure. His mother put him to bed and gave him a tablespoon of chamomile tea, which he obediently drank. As for Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, they had bread, milk, and blackberries for supper, safe and sound